All right, so Donald J. Trump, who at this point we all know is under indictment for, I believe, 37 counts revolving around his classified documents that he was sort of like haphazardly storing in a bathroom and in a ballroom and in some suspicious room with a copier machine at his place at Mar-a-Lago down in Florida, has recently, since his first appearance in court, come out and given a speech and basically responded in terms of how he is analyzing the current situation that he is facing right now. So again, just as a refresher, he obviously put himself into this position. This is not some sort of a political prosecution that is single-handedly being brought by the Biden administration personally. This is something that Trump 1000% did to himself. He could have just given back the classified documents that he had in his possession like Mike Pence did, like Joe Biden did, but instead chose to try to give the feds the runaround and lied about the documents that he did have, pretended as if he gave them back, all of the documents that he had, but then he really didn't. He also lied to his own lawyers about which boxes contained which documents and all of that good stuff, and was apparently holding on to everything from, random, classified documents that may not be that important up to nuclear secrets that he apparently had in his possession. And obviously, keeping them at Mar-a-Lago is a red flag immediately, because this is legitimately a hotbed of spies, and that is a verifiable fact. There have been actual legitimate spies from countries around the world that have been prosecuted in relation to their break-ins to Mar-a-Lago. So I mean, this is basically the situation Donald Trump has set up for himself, and yet this is his immediate response to this prosecution that is being brought by Jack Smith.
I did everything right and they indicted me. I did everything right and they indicted me. I did everything right and they indicted me.
Okay, so just amazing, man. Just amazing. I did everything right and they indicted me. They indicted me, folks. They didn't indict Biden, the Biden crime family. Okay, not Hillary and her emails or anything. No, just me. Okay, and so basically his point here is what exactly? That he did everything right? That he didn't? I mean, listen, I'm not even a fan of the overclassification of so-called classified documents, which, the government will classify whatever the fuck they want, whenever the fuck they want. Anything that could potentially be tangentially embarrassing for the government, they're going to classify it, right? And so I'm not a fan of that, but also let's separate a couple different things here, right? On the one hand, we have Donald Trump, who was basically keeping these classified documents either in the worst case scenario to sell them to foreign governments for his own personal financial benefit, and on the best end, basically just as a flex for people who were coming to Mar-a-Lago, so he could pretend oh, I still am kind of sort of the president, and look at these classified documents. And these are basically direct quotes that we have where he's showing people classified documents, admitting that he shouldn't be showing them those documents, and then showing them anyways, and basically just using it as a flex. And then he has the audacity to turn around here and be I did everything right and they indicted me. And it's no, you're not Julian Assange, you're not Chelsea Manning, you're not Edward Snowden, you're not being a whistleblower and taking classified information and then revealing it to the American public because it's information the American public has a right to be aware of or to know about. No, you were just using it for your own personal benefit, right, in one way or another, whether that's financial or whether it's just for clout, right? So that's the situation that he put himself in. But we had a couple different other things that I wanted to focus on here in terms of his speech that he gave in the aftermath of all of this indictment shit coming out. So this was one thing that I wanted to focus on here. So basically, we have Donald Trump coming out and admitting the quiet part out loud in terms of U.S. foreign policy under his administration in regards to Venezuela. So let's just go ahead and listen to this real quick.
How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela, so we're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this? Nobody can believe it. You know where the oil, their oil is garbage. It's horrible. The worst you can get. Tar. It's like tar. And to refine it, you need special plants. How about...
Okay, so again, there you have it. The former president of the United States, who, as I've covered on this channel, literally did try to coup the Maduro government in Venezuela and replace them with some sort of a US-backed puppet, installation of Juan Guaido. Okay, this guy legitimately just said openly, and keep in mind, I mean, we're facing all of these classified documents cases, right? This is something that I actually would think that would be a much, a larger charge that you could bring against somebody like Donald Trump or any other president for that matter, is him just openly admitting to trying to coup a government, a sovereign nation, okay, of Venezuela, explicitly, as he just openly admitted there, to try to steal their oil. I mean, that's the main beef that he has. This is why we have sanctions on Venezuela. This is why the United States government demonizes Maduro. It's not because we are principally opposed to authoritarianism or we love freedom and democracy or anything even remotely, tangentially related to that stuff. It's because we want their fucking oil. And he just came out and said it. He just said that out loud. That yes, if we had successfully couped the Venezuelan government and installed somebody like Juan Guaido or whoever the case may be, somebody who is more open to being subservient to the interest of US-backed multinational corporations, then we would have been able to steal their oil and we wouldn't have to be buying their oil from them. I mean, think about that. He just said, right now we're buying Venezuelan oil and that's a bad thing, okay? Implying that having to buy oil from another sovereign nation is a bad thing. Because what? Because we, as the United States, as the global dominant hegemonic empire, right, that we should just be able to steal their oil? Is that the implication? And it's like, yes, that's literally exactly what he's saying here. I mean, this reminds me of how Trump would talk about leaving certain troops within Syria in certain locations, and he kind of, again, came out and said the quiet part out loud and said, well, we need to keep a certain amount of troops within Syria because those are the troops who are guarding the oil fields, okay? I mean, again, he just comes out and says this shit openly. So I got a couple more clips here that I wanted to show you guys from one of these speeches that he gave right after his indictment, just to give you a picture in terms of where Donald Trump is at right now in his headspace as this indictment is obviously heating up. So we're going to start off here with this first clip, as pointed out here by Aaron Rupar. He says Trump falsely refers to the classified documents he had in his possession as my own presidential papers and his own documents. Let's go ahead and watch this.
Charging a former president of the United States under the Espionage Act of 1917 wasn't meant for this. An act for a crime so heinous that only the death penalty would do, and threatening me with 400 years in prison for possessing my own presidential papers, which just about every other president has done, is one of the most outrageous and vicious legal theories ever put forward in an American court of law. The Espionage Act has been used to go after traitors and spies. It has nothing to do with a former president legally keeping his own documents.
Okay, so again, he seems to be confused about, the power that a president has, meaning a president who is still the president, right? A president who is elected and in power, having the ability to declassify documents, which they do have a large degree of discretion for, right? Trump did not use that discretion when it comes to the classified documents that he had in his discretion, right? Or that he had in his possession, okay? He did not use that discretion in order to declassify those documents and to go through the actual legal avenue in order to get them declassified. He didn't do any of that, right? So he's just referencing the Presidential Records Act and then pretending as if, like, because I had these documents after I already left the presidency and I didn't go through any of the actual procedures in order to get them declassified so that I could legally have them in my possession, I just get to have them anyways because I was the president, point blank, period. I mean, that's his argument here. Now listen, it might play well in front of the crowd that he's in front of right now, of his, deranged supporters, but it's not going to play well in front of a court, because what he just described there is basically just an admission of the criminality of the actual case that we're talking about here, right? He had the documents in his possession. He was showing them to people who did not have security clearances. And again, we're not talking about classified documents like, Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning revealed that showed U.S. war crimes overseas, and Donald Trump is being a whistleblower and he's trying to expose the crimes of the empire, or, Edward Edward Snowden revealing that the federal government was unconstitutionally spying on the American people with the NSA and all that stuff. He's not doing anything like that, right? He's just keeping these documents because he wanted to. And that's his defense here. It's just, I had the right because I was the president, and so I am infinitely powerful from the second I took office until infinity, okay? And so nothing I ever did could possibly be wrong. And later in this speech, the crowd that he was talking in front of, and him himself, were basically doing the repeat of like the lock her up Hillary Clinton chants, which is just amazing. Because number one, if you want to lock up Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Obama or George W. Bush or Bill Clinton for that matter, go for it. I mean, if you have actual charges you can bring against them, I could come up personally with probably 10, 15, 20 crimes for each of them that we could talk about, mostly focused on like war crimes, for example. Hillary Clinton with Libya, Joe Biden supporting the Iraq War and that invasion, the drone program under Obama that he was also partially responsible for. I mean, so many different examples that we could come up with. George Bush, the war in Iraq, etc., right? So many different things that we could charge these presidents for, but Donald Trump's position is not like, oh, Hillary Clinton did X, Y, and Z bad with the classified documents that she had on her private server, therefore she should be arrested and I should also be arrested. No, it's just a partisan game here. It's just, we want our political opponents, which is super ironic because this is the argument that Trump is making against Biden, right? He's locking up his political opponent ahead of an election, right? But then he turns around and he literally announces, number one, we want to arrest Hillary Clinton for doing basically like a slightly more mild version of what he did with these classified documents, number one. And then also he said he wants to appoint a special prosecutor specifically to go and target the so-called Biden crime family if he wins the presidency. So which one is it? I mean, is going after your political opponents, okay, and trying to use the DOJ or weaponize the DOJ against them, is that something that is bad, or is it something that's good and it's only good when you're using it against your own political opponents, or what's actually going on here? Because again, as a leftist, as somebody who doesn't give a single solitary shit about anybody within the upper echelons of the Democratic or the Republican parties, it's easy for me to sit here and say, if Joe Biden, if Hillary Clinton, if Obama, if George W. Bush, if Bill Clinton, if Donald J. Trump committed crimes, they should all be arrested. But he can't say that, okay? Because he's a criminal in the same way that many other US presidents have been criminals. It just so happens that he's a even more stupid and ridiculous criminal, to the point where he's basically been caught on tape saying, I love committing crimes. Please come convict me for being the crimes committer over here. And then he turns around and pretends as if it's some sort of like deep state led political witch hunt or something like that. So here's Donald Trump admitting to the crimes that he is being alleged of committing within this ongoing indictment that he is facing over the classified documents, admitting that he willfully tried to coup another sovereign nation's government in order to try to steal their natural resources, specifically oil in the case of Venezuela, okay? And then on top of that, giving us sound bites like that first one that we just watched there, where he says, I did nothing wrong and they indicted me, and then expects just that like that's going to be a legal defense for him.
Everyone is saying good politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying